I'm going to break the wheel.
Ultra Ninja JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca. Faz macramé no micado, paz, espadas por frases. Sintático, repara no que digo, é paradigmático. Não tenho paralelo, sou para lá de mágico. Sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático. Técnica secreta do monstro roxo. Estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter comes no jogo. Só com uma espada nos tojos. Plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem. Nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave, mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jinx cabrão, respeito ao Vasco, comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espelunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sento o silêncio. Versus Shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas, 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 ninjas.
And we are live, and a good evening to everyone out there, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Collaborations with the Westerosi Ninja and Dawg Sunday. Tonight, we will be going through our top 5 characters in the Star Wars universe. When I say Star Wars universe, it's not just movie canon, okay? It's also from the Legends as well. So from books, from the canon books, or it could be from the Legends books, which is no longer considered canon because Disney sucks. And as always, again, Dawg is here to give us his feelings on this particular topic. So, what's up, Dawg? What's happening with you?
Oh, not a whole lot. I was watching a little football today. Milton was, kind of wasn't very exciting. There was the Bears and Denver game was kind of exciting at the end, come to think of it. But I'm really excited actually to talk about some Star Wars here tonight and get away from watching football today here. So great to see everybody as well. And I wanted to quickly mention, this is. The list I went with tonight, I based it pretty much off of my feelings, my overall feelings throughout the whole entire realm of Star Wars throughout the history, which you did too. I think that's what it's all about, just being a fan of Star Wars tonight and, let your feelings out there. You want to play along with us as we go through our list. Great to see y'all here tonight. So, ready to rock, buddy.
Yeah, so I had a really great time here because, we expanded it to cover the Legends. So, I'm a really big fan of the Legends books and storylines. So, because of that, I was able to put in some of my old-time favorites in there. So, pretty excited to actually talk about these characters here. And Dawg, hey, how do you feel about being on TV?
This is fantastic. I was just going to mention this is my first time on television. And and hi, Mom. So that's the way they did it back in the 70s after they scored a touchdown. So that's my first thing I get to do. And it's hey, look at me, I'm the Fonz now.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is totally awesome here. Hey, Dawg, and also, Dawg, since you are on the stream with the Westerosi Ninja, what do you think our next slide is going to be?
Oh, you know what, folks? Just not only, as you can see, these are old school televisions, like, back in the day where we had to actually get up off the couch and actually turn the dial back in the day. So as I've kind of educated you on that tonight, we're on the Ninjas channel. We're gonna get educated tonight. We're gonna get some numbers. We're gonna get some trivia. We're gonna get that little bit of an edge on our friends, during coffee time.
Exactly. And this stuff is really, really impressive and really, really informative. So be prepared to be educated here. So let's take a look at the number of characters in the entire Star Wars universe, okay? So I picked this up from Science Alert here. So according to Swiss researchers who evidently have a lot of time in their hands, there's actually a whopping 21,647 characters in the Star Wars universe. Okay, and this was extracted from entries in Wikipedia. Okay, so you go Swiss researchers for that. Okay, and there's approximately a 36,000 year storyline. Okay, so all these characters is over the period of 36,000 years. Okay, and that's canon as well as legends. Okay, so despite the high visibility of aliens in the Star Wars universe, right? Because who can ever forget the cantina scene? It turns out that almost 80% of the major players are actually human, dog. Can you believe that? So if you look at that pie chart there, 80% of the characters are human, and the rest of them are just no, your basic, your other races that have actually appeared in canon and legends. Pretty
That is
interesting.
quite surprising.
Yeah.
Our graph there actually, or excuse me, our pie chart
Mm-hmm.
looks like Pac-Man back in the day when he ate a power pellet and just grew like Super Pac-Man size, and he's going after all the ghost monsters
Yeah.
as they happen to be the colors of the ghost monsters from the Pac-Man game.
You know what it looks like to me?
That is very surprising.
Yeah.
One thing though I did notice is I'm looking for droids, right? That's not. I mean, I wonder how much that would cut into it. Like our C3POs and our K2SOs, things of that nature. Those characters as well.
I think the droids will probably be maybe like a little bit larger than the Wookiee slice, is my guess.
Yeah, that's probably fair to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite surprising, actually.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Pac-Man throwing up, and boom, all the different colors, rainbow colors. So if Pac-Man, after he ate like the candies, the pellets, and ate some of the ghosts, if he threw up, those things would come out of his mouth. It would just be like a myriad of colors. What do you think?
That's a great analogy there, or a great point made. Yeah, I think that's like what happened. Pac-Man just ate too many ghost monsters.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way Luke looked at the end of The Last Jedi. Kind of how he looked like he ate a bunch of donuts.
Yeah.
Like he was just kind of ready to let loose. And that's kind of what happened to Pac-Man here, folks. So.
Yeah, or if Pac-Man drank some of that space walrus milk, wouldn't that stuff wouldn't that stuff be the stuff he'll vomit in different colors and everything else? I mean, I don't know. I mean, just saying, space walrus milk, guys. Think about it. And lastly, the last point I wanted to make was that, of all these characters that have actually been introduced in the Star Wars universe, about 1,367 of them are Jedi and 724 of them are Sith. What do you think about that, dog? Twice as many Jedi than Sith.
Well, that kind of makes sense, and I'm assuming that most of the Sith, of course, this is all legend stuff too, is included with this milk.
Yep. Over 36,000 years of storyline.
Because I think right when we get to the Darth Bane start, then we're kind of at the rule of two, right? Where the two are kind of they're the main focus. And that's what makes the villains in Star Wars so much better. The Darth Vaders and the Palpatine. That team. So now when you look at the Jedi, even in the films, right? It's like, especially when we go to the prequels and we get to the Council and we just see everybody got a lightsaber now, right?
Yeah.
Before in the films, barely anybody had a lightsaber. They were basically extinct, right? But when we get to the prequels, we're just surrounded by Jedi, but we basically only have, 2 Sith, and then we get a replacement. Then we get a replacement. It's kind of like that. So
yeah, and I mean, so way back in the Legends, okay, if you just pre Darth Bane, the actual numbers between Jedi and Sith are pretty comparable, in terms of how they were introduced and how many of them were actually named, and you're exactly right. After Darth Bane, right, you were only kind of like stuck at 2 at the max, right, for any subsequent story. So I mean, that was from like 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, up to the present day storylines. Whereas Jedi just kept on growing. So basically, you had twice as many Jedi being introduced than you had Sith. So and that's why you have the spread of about twice as many Jedi versus Sith in terms of the overall number. So I mean, I thought this was really cool. And if you actually look at the actual pie chart itself, I'll let you know that Yuuzhan Vong, that is strictly right now a Legends alien race, but everything else is pretty much canon at this point. Uh, Zabrox or Darth Maul, you know. Celestin is that, you know, it was that little midget guy that flew with Lando and Chewbacca in Return of the Jedi.
Well, even the
So,
uh,
Rodian's Greedo.
do we ever see the Bothans at all? Like even in Rogue One,
No,
they
okay,
show up?
okay. We never see Bothans because Rogue One, you know, made them out to be mostly humans or humanoids.
I can't
Yeah,
recall seeing.
Bothans are only appears in the, you know, as they're only referenced in the end of
Right,
the Another Hope, A New Hope, but they are mentioned a lot
Return
in
of
the
the Jedi.
books. They are mentioned a
Return of
lot
the
in the,
Jedi.
yeah. They're no, actually when Mon Mothma
Yeah,
references
and
them,
Return of
right?
the Jedi.
Yeah. Do we see a Bothan in Return of the Jedi? I don't think we do.
No, but that's where she does the reference.
No, she does it in A New Hope, right? Goes, yeah, many Bothans
Many
died to this.
Bothan spies died to bring us this information.
Yeah, yeah.
That was regarding the second Death Star.
No. It was. I thought it was regarding the first Death Star
No,
when the
that's
plans
when they
came.
were all getting ready to go to Endor.
Okay, well that's sure. Okay. Well, we can talk about that later. Okay, but I'm pretty sure Mon Mothma only appeared in A New Hope and not in
Mm,
Return of the Jedi.
she's in the third one.
Yeah, it's the first one, man. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, we can talk about that later. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Remember the red-headed senator, guys. The red-headed senator. Where does she appear in?
I'll tell you
Yes.
what, I know Rhodes would know. Rhodes
Yeah.
would be the tiebreaker in this. Where does
Yeah.
Mon
So where is
Mothma?
Rose? Which movie does Mon Mothma appear in?
And she says many Bothan
Since die.
spies
Yeah.
died to bring us this information.
Yeah. And I'm saying it was in A New Hope, and Dawg saying
I'm
Return of
saying
the
it's
Jedi.
Return of the Jedi,
Hmm.
and I know that Rhodes would know.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, we're in deep trouble.
If Felicia were here, she would know too, because we've always talked about it, and and it's always been A New Hope. But we can't wait for Rhodes, unfortunately, because
That's okay.
he's probably eating right now or something. So let's go ahead. But what I really wanted to say was that, out of all those alien species, only the Yuzhan Vong is actually a Legends alien race that hasn't been introduced yet into canon. Everything else is actually canon. Rhodians is basically Greedos. Okay, so you have a bunch of Greedos running around. Twi'leks, are those green dancers, green skin dancer-looking dancers from Return of the Jedi.
Like
A,
Ula.
yeah, a Zabrak is basically Darth Maul, right? So, everybody knows what a Wookiee is. So, and there you go. Monty G says A New Hope.
You're crazy, Moni. You guys are both. You guys are trolling me, both of you.
Anyway. So when is the line? In which movie is the line? Many Bothans died, trying to obtain this information. So anyway,
Yeah, Dog is correct. It's Return of the Jedi right there from Rhodes.
I'm going to disagree with you, Rose, honestly, because if you look at the end, right before they fly out to destroy the first Death Star, Mon Mothma, the red-headed senator, says that. Okay, I'm positive.
The first one is General
No, yeah, General Dodonna is there.
Dodonna.
Yeah, but he
That's in
doesn't
the
say
first
anything.
movie.
He doesn't say anything because at the end of A New Hope, right, where they're doing the medal ceremony, you see this tall red-headed woman, right, with short hair. That's Mon Mothma, and she
Yeah, and
actually
she's in. Yeah, when they're
Yeah.
getting ready to go to Endor, right?
Yeah.
When they're all ready to go to the second, she tells them all about the plans that the Emperor has for the second Death Star, and then Luke shows up. He's like, and I'm coming too, because she's like, she talks about what Han Solo is gonna do and stuff like that. But the first film, that's when General Dundana's like, he tells them about all the trench run they're gonna have to make.
And well, let's gonna think about it because I'm pretty sure. Okay, okay, we will confirm after the stream. Okay, because I'm pretty darn sure. Okay,
It's been 30, 40 some years. So
This is 1976,
Yeah.
right? So, all right. So anyway, so that's the trivia information. So remember, if you want to impress some girl in the bar, because if you actually still go to bars, is you can tell them that there's 21,647 total characters have been introduced in all of the Star Wars universe. That includes Legends and Canon. And that's over a period of 36,000 years worth of storyline. Whoa, man. Mind blown.
21,647.
Exactly. And let's get into our theme for tonight, which is our top 5 characters of Star Wars.
So out of the 21,647,
Yep.
we basically have 6. Well, we have 5.
Exactly.
And an honorable mention.
Yep, that's right. We have 5 and an honorable mention. And Dawg, since you are the visiting team, guess what?
Ooh, I get to batter up, folks.
Dog's up.
I'm gonna start it right out with I'll bet you have. And this is the man that shot first. And one of the greatest, arguably one of the greatest characters in the history of film, I'd have to say. And what really, I think when we did this list a while back, I think Han he didn't make my list before, but things have kind of changed my feelings towards, and I basically have based this overall from, 1977 all the way to present day, what's happened. Mm-hmm. And when I really think about this character, why he's, now on my, even honorable mention list here out of the 21,647 to choose from, he was really the only bright spot to me in The Force Awakens, right? So, he's kind of, at the time he was just he was like Fonzie on Happy Days, right? I mean, he was this film's Fonzie. If anybody remembers Happy Days and how cool Fonzie was and how much of an icon, as we have the television theme here going tonight, but. I mean, this dude his leather jacket was just as important as Fonzie's back in the day. So, he brought the spice to he was really the heartbeat between those characters, especially, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, right? Because they were kind of no names to us at first, but. And even Harrison Ford was kind of no-namish too, but you could tell that his presence, when he's on film, I mean, you just knew that this guy was going to go somewhere, right? His voice, and just his mannerisms too. You can see, when nobody does the finger point better than Han Solo, right? Or Harrison Ford for that matter. I think I've seen him do that few times as Indiana Jones, by the way, too. So, and then, we brought up the aliens a little bit earlier, Milt, but he had the best, buddy relationship ever with with his Wookiee Chewbacca, mm-hmm. Right? I mean, probably one of the coolest aliens of all time is Chewbacca. I'm talking of versus Spock, and I don't know, Cousin It maybe. Is Cousin It a space creature? Well,
no, he's not.
Right? I mean, we were the coolest aliens of all time, right? Just off the top of your head, maybe the alien creature or something, right? But Chewbacca's number one on my list, obviously, because I can't really even think of any right now.
What about Tarzan and Cheetah?
Yeah, like Tarzan and Cheetah, right? Yeah. I mean, that was cool back in the day too, right?
Yeah.
Or like Mowgli and Baloo or something, or BJ and the Bear.
Yeah, you're right. And Clint Eastwood and that orangutan. What was the guy's name?
And this is the thing, I want to bring this up, one last thing, because it was so cool about Chewbacca back in the day in 1977 when we watched him and stuff, when he was doing his growls and stuff, whatever. And, and Han would talk back to him, right? And we just knew as an audience, because we were that smart at even 5 years old, to understand that when, Chewie growled or something, And when Han responded or something like that, we just kind of knew that, oh, Chewie was kind of mad or something. He was just, when a Wookiee's growling, you kind of understand when he's upset and things like that, right? But, Han was always there to be like, I got it, but he brought life to that character. He brought so much more life to the character of Chewbacca, right? Just when you hear those growls and just his responses, things of that nature, it really, gave you an emotional attachment to that Wookiee. I'm sure a lot of fans have felt that way. So, and that's just how powerful of an actor he is. And to me, he's like the only bright spot in The Force Awakens. When he takes that role in The Force Awakens 33 years later, he's still Han Solo perfectly.
Hey, Dawg. No, great choice here. Basically, Han Solo is like the epitome of a good-natured scoundrel, right? That's pretty much what he is. Just a good-natured scoundrel who has a good heart and basically is willing to risk his life at the end to basically for his friends. I'm not sure how big he was, in terms of how he felt about the actual rebellion and the Rebel Alliance, but he did do what he ended up doing what he did for his friends, right? That he cared for. So, good-natured scoundrel. You know why Han Solo's so cool? Because I'm gonna give you a music reference here. You ever watched old videos of REM from the 80s and 90s? Peter Buck was the lead guitarist for REM, and he wore the same exact vest on stage when he was playing guitar as Han Solo did. So that's pretty freaking cool, right? It's sort of like when everybody started wearing leather jackets when Fonzie came into vogue. It's kind of the same thing, right? So instead of having a bathroom as your office, Han Solo had the Millennium Falcon as his office. I probably would pick the Millennium Falcon versus a restroom at Arnold's, personally, as my office. But,
the thing, well,
Fonzie had to make do.
Fonzie, like, he was like the one up that Fonzie had, though, was that as he was going into his office, he could just bang on the jukebox with his fist, and whatever song he wanted to play would just play back then. He was faster than the internet back in 1955 Milwaukee than anybody, right? He was what every guy wanted to do, right? He could just bang on the jukebox, not even have to put a quarter in it or nothing, and then that song would play. He'd snap his fingers, and then the excitement would happen, if you will. And then he'd go to his office, right? Whereas man, Han Solo does have the chessboard, though, too.
Yeah. Hey, but you know who had the same power as Fonzie? Chewbacca, right? All he had to do was bang away at the bulkhead of the Millennium Falcon, and boom, the hyperspace would come on. Just like the jukebox at Arnold's. Just saying. So, anyway, but great choice. Han Solo is a really iconic character, right? We all know that. He's been written extensively in the books, and his character is really, really fleshed out there in terms of his background, his early life, as well as his relatives, actually. He has a very smarmy set of relatives, including one cousin who doesn't like to share power. So, great choice, Dawg. For your honorable mention, Han Solo. Now, for my honorable mention, okay, I'm going back into Legends here, okay? None other than my man, my Sith Lord from 5,000 years ago, Naga Sadal, okay? This dude was a pure badass. Basically, he was the leader of the Sith Empire when the Sith actually had an empire, right? So there were like thousands of these guys roaming their sector of space that they controlled during the Great Hyperspace War, and that happened roughly, about 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin 4. Okay, and the Sith used to be like a very isolated group of, basically a race of aliens, essentially. Okay, they didn't care much about expansion at all. But this guy basically initiated the policies where they wanted to expand, okay, and basically take over more and more star systems. Naga Sadao. So he was a revolutionary for the Sith in that respect. And he was actually a half Sith. He wasn't really a full-blown Sith. But anyway, this guy, master of the arcane arts that the Sith basically practice, alchemy, and probably the most powerful Sith magician of all time. Basically, what he would do is that he would go into these meditation spheres, okay, during battle, and basically create beast illusions during battle, which is pretty freaking cool, right? To create illusions of beasts, right? And ships, and natural, fake ships, illusion, ships, and basically win battles. And then he used these basically illusions to actually capture Coruscant, which is a humongous planet, right? Very populous planet during the Great Hyperspace War. The Sith back then didn't even use lightsabers. What they did was that they actually used swords and basically imbued it with the Force. Okay, which is pretty cool, right? So only back then, only the Jedi actually created actual lightsabers. The Sith didn't use those things. They just basically imbued the Force into regular swords themselves. But they were just as powerful, guys. And during the Great Hyperspace War, it was shown that he can actually manipulate and destroy stars and solar systems with Force lightning. That's some pretty powerful magic. And lastly, but not least, is that remember at the end of A New Hope, they were on Yavin 4. What did you see in the landscape? You saw like old temples, right, sticking out in the middle of the forest. I had that little picture there in the bottom center, okay? Guess who created these temples? That's right. He was defeated at the end of the Great Hyperspace War, so Naga Sadow basically exiled himself to Yavin 4, enslaved the native population, and basically created these temples. So that's your link to the movies, guys. Essentially, Naga Sadow, badass Sith Lord. And, 5,000 years ago, before the Battle of Yavin. So, what can you say about this guy? Dawg, any thoughts, comments?
Well, that's just great that you linked it back to the to the old films and stuff. I mean, I remember, that scene vividly the first time. Is that a clip from Rogue One, though? Do you know offhand, or from the old?
That's a clip from A New Hope.
From A New Hope. Okay, awesome. Mm-hmm. So those temples we have him to thank for.
Yep.
Basically, so I was reading. And I'm pretty impressed. I mean, this guy's like on Thanos level or something. He can just destroy stars with Force lightning and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you though, what's like your, I guess, where did you find this character the first time? And
okay, well, I found
what's some of what's like your favorite story from him? I guess if I could kind of get into if somebody new that's never kind of met this character before, where would be the best place to kind of go and visit and some of the fun, exciting things.
Okay, the whole story of Naga Sadow and the Great Hyperspace War was actually written in the old Dark Horse comics, series, Tales of the Old Republic, and basically it's the Golden Age of the Sith was the graphic novel that Naga Sadow was first introduced. I actually have that. It's buried in my garage right now because I'm moving. So otherwise, I would just show you, Golden Age of the Sith, and that's where I was first introduced to Naga Sadow. In fact, that was when he was actually first introduced to the masses. So they've never explained the origin of those temples on Yavin 4 until this story was actually published 20 years later.
Awesome.
Yeah. Naga Sadow. And he's always on a trivia question whenever I talk about Sith. I always show a picture of this guy and I ask everybody to name this guy. In fact,
keep in mind, try not to spell shadow.
Yeah. Remember against the Felicia last week on Trivia Jeopardy Showdown, right? I actually showed this picture. Because, she knows I'm all into this guy for whatever reason. So, anyway, that is Naga Sadow. That's my honorable mention.
Naga's bones. That's what Christy says.
So now we will go into our top 5, and Dawg, take it away, dude.
So this is our top 5 out of 21,647 to choose from, folks. And my number 5 on the list is none other than my favorite princess of all time. Out of all the princesses, and like like every single story that's ever been told, right? So like Snow White and Cinderella and the Chicken Shrek or whatever, right? Out of all those stories, yada yada yada, this is my top princess of all time, is Princess Leia. All right, so that's my feelings on that. There's and that's so that's why she made my top 5. I think this is like one of the first times that this is kind of like a breakthrough character for a lot of times a lot of times these films would just kind of have the kind of airheaded damsel in distress, if you will. And this character had some life to her, right? She was smart, she was witty. That was important too. Not only was she, she could go from kind of like that. She could kind of do those 3 phases very well. She could play the damsel, she could play the wittiness, right? And she could also play the the kind of the fierce politician kind of, right? The kind of with the mannerisms and things of that nature at the same time. And then I can even add a 4th where at the end of A New Hope, where she can just stand there looking like the most amazing princess of all time, right? So it was a great way to introduce us into that story. Was we got to we got to see her, and she introduces us to the droids basically, because it was very important to that film to be able to work. Because I think about, there's probably, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's probably a good 15 minutes in the opening film in 1977 where we are just with the droids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of like we are with R2 and C3PO and what's kind of going on with them as they get split and stuff like that. And we are, as an audience, this is like we're in a film where we're watching robots and we're connected with these robots now. But it was this princess that gave us that connection in the beginning, right? Because we knew that she was under the clutches of this evil Lord Vader now, and so she gave that human element to those droids. I think that was important. R2 was pretty feisty, gonna go about this mission, to do what she wanted done, and then now we have 3PO to kind of guide us. He's kind of like the Han Solo to Chewbacca. He talks and R2 does the beeps and boops, right? But by the time we finally kind of get to hear her, speak, I think, with Tarkin, I think, and her planet gets blown up, right? And after all that, when Luke Skywalker comes to rescue her, she's got a crack on him about his height, and then she's right away she's on Han Solo, and it's just such a funny moment because it's like it's not really Han's plan, right? And yet he's just getting ripped by her, right? So it's just absolutely funny when she's just like, you're great plan. You had a way of getting in, but you didn't have one to getting out, right? And I think he was like, he's the brain sweetheart, but and again, going back to Harrison Ford, that's he was so perfect as that support role, right? I mean, he was perfect to support Leia and ultimately our main protagonist, Luke Skywalker, through that trilogy, right? It really gave, that life to characters like this, right? And then she's awesome in Empire Strikes Back, of course, right? I mean, that was probably our the most tense moments in that film is, the stuff that's going on in Cloud City and stuff like that. And she was absolutely perfect in those scenes. And Return of the Jedi, of course. And I wish I could say more. I wasn't very happy with the stuff that Disney did with her, especially. I've mentioned I think the worst scene of all time is her flying through outer space. But that's that's why she's not like on the number 1 list here, right? But yeah, I'm. How can I not have the greatest princess of all time on my top 5? And that's my top 5. I know I rambled a bit, but yeah.
So okay, so Dawg. So I mean, good choice. Very respectable choice here. What do you think was Princess Leia's strongest performance out of all the movies?
Out of all the movies,
Yeah.
I'd probably say Empire Strikes Back.
Yep. I mean, I agree too. I think that was her strongest
I think
performance.
because again, when I look back at
Hmm.
how dark that film was to us at the time, right? Because we
Hmm.
had a nice, fun space adventure film,
Great movie.
right,
Hmm.
in the first one, but now we had, now that we had grown to know these characters, and now we're seeing them go through some really tense moments, right? I mean, the look on her face, as she first sees Han Solo, frozen in carbonite, right, and kind of just
Hmm.
like clinging to Chewbacca at the time, right? It's moments like that that just make me that made my heart pound, and gave you that awful melancholy feeling that's what films are great for, right? I mean, to give you those feelings like that, and she was perfect to do that. So yeah, I think that was probably some of her strongest stuff was the Cloud City stuff. I think, Milt.
Yep. Any theories as to why she ditched the cinnamon rolls on the sides of her heads after the first movie?
Well, it looks like she went with some sort of Danish, possibly, or maybe just the outsides of the Danishes or something. I'm looking at her hairstyle and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
But it looks like they started like just kind of changing her hairstyle like in every scene, her outfits in every scene. But they really amped that up with with her mother, right? With
Yeah.
Queen Amidala. That she just probably just cut to the next character and then look over here and then she's in a new suit. So
Yeah. I mean, her hairstyle has actually kind of progressively gotten straighter as she aged because I mean she started out with those cinnamon rolls and then she had that kind of like that curly high top thing in Empire Strikes Back. Then in Return of the Jedi, her hair straightened out,
yeah,
right?
she had
Yeah.
like a real long like a Crystal Gale cut.
Yeah, yeah. And then and then, in the Disney movie, she was also wearing straight hair as well, the same kind of Crystal Gale cut, albeit a bit more gray in it, but yeah. So, she went from curly to straight. So, I guess they do have hair straighteners in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago.
Looks like C-3PO is going after those buns.
Yeah, he looks pretty hungry, doesn't he? You
He
know,
does now. Come to think of it.
but in another hope, all you needed was just all you need to do is just shut down and basically get his joints lubricated, right?
He could order cinnamon rolls in 6 million different ways.
Yep,
Pretty
six
impressive.
6 million different ways at the cinnamon roll drive-through on Tatooine. So there you go, guys. Dogs number
I
five.
did say Crystal Gale. I don't know why, but that was pretty good.
Yeah, why
I thought it
not?
was too.
And it is Princess Leia, dogs number five. My numero cinco is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Basically he appeared in episodes 1 through 6 as well as in the Clone Wars and in multitudes of books throughout Legends and canon. He to me basically represented the conscience of the Jedi Order. Okay, he's the one that stood up for all the virtues and all the behaviors as to what made a Jedi, right? And basically he followed the code to the hilt. Okay, so if anything, he was like the Sir Lancelot, if you will, of the Jedi Order, right? But he wasn't just a Jedi Knight, right? He was also proving himself to be a very great, battle strategist, right? He's a great general during the Clone Wars. I mean, also not a bad pilot, even though he did consider himself not a very good pilot. I mean, he was pretty darn good actually. Mastered the Form 3 lightsaber combat. Okay, that's probably what made him survive the fight against General Grievous with all 12 of his lightsabers going on at once. Okay, basically, Form 3 lightsaber combat is called Surisu, and it's basically a defense oriented lightsaber form. So basically, it was developed to basically deflect blaster bolts, if you will, but it could be used just basically, as defense in a regular lightsaber duel. Uh, and what the cool thing about him is that he was actually involved in most of the significant events of the Galactic, Republic, in in the period of the movies, right? He basically was the mentor of arguably two of the most powerful Jedi in history, right? We're talking about Anakin Skywalker and then later on Luke Skywalker. So yeah, I mean I love this guy, I mean so basically kind-hearted. He was a conscience. He represented the Jedi Order at the fullest. And what did Anakin Skywalker say about Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan's a great mentor. He's as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu. And actually, I can't disagree with that statement by Anakin Skywalker because I think he was. And basically, who can forget those classic two lines? Use the Force, Luke, in A New Hope, and then I had the high ground. Wasn't it awesome? Anakin, I had the high ground. And that is my number 5, Obi-Wan.
I think the first time he ever said that, I think every Star Wars fan, just like for a moment in their brain, was just like, "What's going on?" I think we were all just kind of going, have we ever seen where the high ground ever mattered possibly before?
The lightsaber combat, yeah. But I thought it was pretty funny. Generally when armies have the high ground, okay, they can either wait for an attack or they can actually charge downhill, right? Because you get that momentum, and that's actually an advantage.
It's basically like the end game when you have a pawn and a king versus just the king or something, right? It's kind of like one of those checkmates, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically what Obi-Wan was basically saying. Look, it's checkmate, and there's no way out of this. So either surrender or you're gonna die.
Yeah. And also, before I ask you about what your thoughts are about Obi-Wan, guess what? Dawg's number 4 is also.
It just happens to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So we got more Obi-Wan. Go ahead, Dawg.
That's a name I have not heard in a long, long time. In a long, long time.
So what are your feelings about Obi-Wan?
Oh yeah, this is definitely one of my all-time favorite characters in the history of film. How are we never gonna forget? You don't need to see his identification, right? I mean, the old Jedi mind trick, right? I mean, that's just absolute classic scene, right? But the first time we meet him, I remember, because Luke was looking at, wanting to check out where the Sand People are, 3PO's like, there are several creatures approaching from the southeast, and then you just hear, I think it's the strings, like the low cellos or something, right? And it's just like, whoom, right? And it just gave you that eerie feeling. And then Luke first says Sand People, right? And then you're just like, and now Luke wants to go check them out. And, I'm thinking at 5 years old, probably best to get the droids and head on back. That's what I'm thinking, right? But of course, Luke's in trouble now. And I love the original sound. They've actually changed the sound on Obi-Wan's entrance, but he had like this like eerie, kind of like a banshee scream, right, if you will, right? But we just knew he was just so at first it was kind of scary when, you're like, oh, what's this terror? But then now the Sand People are running off, of course. And, now, Sir Alec Guinness shows up. Hello there. The iconic hello there. And now he was just the perfect person to tell us this old backstory of this ancient realm, thousands of years ago or thousand generations ago. And, there used to be this amazing realm, and, there were knights and there was order, and then all of a sudden now there's just absolute chaos, of course, right? Brought the little finger chaos thing in there. I did that. And that's, he was just, and then he gives Luke this lightsaber, and it was just like the most absolutely perfect thing I'd ever seen on film was the lightsaber. And that's what totally made me a fan for all time. But then we just had some more great, powerful scenes with, him, with the Jedi mind trick, of course. Of course, he's the one that meets Chewbacca, right? And introduces us to Han Solo, basically, right? So he's kind of our bridge to the Wookiee realm. He's our bridge to the prequels, right? So when we first go to the prequel, he's basically the character we definitely know. We know the droids, of course, but we all know who Obi-Wan Kenobi is in the prequels, as we were going into him. He was probably one of our most anticipated, other than Darth Vader, possibly, of course, right? But, going into the prequels, this was the character I wish they would have definitely focused on a lot more. And I think they did better after Phantom Menace with them, right? And think they started utilizing him better. Of course, we had the most, he had probably one of the best lightsaber fights, of course, with Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish in the beginning of that film, in the middle, I wish we'd have got a little more stuff from him. But other than that, the prequels didn't like totally damage his character or really. I don't think the prequels hurt his character at all. I don't know if they, and I think it actually beefed him up even more.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, in the Phantom Menace, right? I mean, he was basically a Padawan, right? Because really the focus was just on Qui-Gon Jinn, right? The rogue master, basically finding Anakin, basically trying to get him, man, no, this kid has a record high midichlorian count. Let's go get him. Let's go bring him to a console, right? I think Obi-Wan was the one that tested him, right? Wasn't he holding the device to measure Anakin's midichlorian count?
Yeah, he was on the ship.
Yeah.
He could basically transfer the data into the computer, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
yes.
But yeah, Qui-Gon basically took the blood or whatever.
Yeah. So I think his is a character, at least in the movies, that was actually it was really mostly fleshed out, right? Because you got to see him as a Padawan, then as Anakin's mentor, right, and then as a very respected member of the Jedi Council, who is also a general for the Clone Wars. He was the one that basically discovered the secret Camino cloning facilities, right, which is pretty cool, right? And
right. Oh yeah, that was some of my favorite stuff. And in Attack of the Clones was the Camino scene.
Yep, and him and Jango Fett going at it, right, on Camino.
The other thing I wanted to really mention quickly, you brought up perfectly, was that as we were going into the prequels, and he was going to be our bridge into this, kind of this film, if you will, and it was just kind of strange to see him talking about midichlorians and stuff like that, because in the first film, he did it so perfectly to not only did he introduce us to the lightsabers and all the stuff, but he introduces us to the Force. I mean, he's the first person that basically talks about the Force and introduces us to the Force, right? So, and like when Alderaan gets destroyed, the emotion that he shows, how there's a tremor in the Force, or a great disturbance in the Force, right? And there's like 1,000 voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced, right? So, but like that, during that scene, but you could really get a grip of, if you're kind of immersed into this world, kind of what the Force does to a Jedi, right? He teaches us that, it can obey your commands and control your actions kind of at the same time, as well as, you can see the future, or you can feel the presence of of other beings and things of that nature when something goes bad, right? And he was perfect at it. So he was a perfect guide for us to lead us into this world.
Yeah, and remember, as in the books, as he's described, he is the model Jedi. I mean, if there was a single paragon of Jedihood, okay, it would probably be Obi-Wan. Okay, badass character. All right, Dawg's number 4, Obi-Wan. That was also my number 5.
Just to let the chat know, as I see Cardinal Doomsday, there are 21,647 characters to choose from. So yes, the prequels are part of that. So
over 36,000 years worth of storyline, because we are counting Legends here. So number 4 on my list is, who doesn't love this guy? He was only here for 5 minutes. Remember last week when I showed you the chart about how much screen time Boba Fett had in the entire run of movies? He only had like 5 minutes of the entire run of movies, but he is one of my most memorable, favorite characters of all. Just because of the fact about how mysterious he was in the original trilogy. I wanted more of this guy. Okay, I mean, come on. He was like dressed up in this armor, right? He had a rocket pack. He had a rocket launcher. He had that really cool helmet. That really cool, ship. It was perfect. When we were introduced to him in Empire Strikes Back, and Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I got his action figure. I love this guy. I mean, this guy was freaking awesome. Then we find out later on in the, in the prequels, basically he is Jango Fett's little boy clone, right? And and who suddenly becomes everyone's favorite intergalactic bounty hunter, right? And as I'm reading, I don't think I ever read an instance of him failing to catch his bounty, which makes it cool. I mean, he caught his final bounty was Han Solo, and he captured him, right? Then I mean, he wasn't on a mission to capture anybody when he fell into the Sarlacc pit and became Skee-Ball Fett, but that's a completely different story altogether. But yeah, I love this guy. I mean, again, for such little screen time, I mean, he still remains one of the most like memorable characters I think in the entire Star Wars universe. Everybody can't get enough of this guy and still wants to ask questions about him. And we are spawning off a new Star Wars TV series called The Mandalorian, which is basically the type of armor that Boba Fett wears. That's Mandalorian armor. So and again, this is a spin-off. Okay, it's not necessarily Boba Fett in this TV series, but it just shows the popularity of Boba Fett that right now somebody is basically producing a TV show about the Mandalorians. Yeah, great stuff, man. He's no good to me dead. Dog.
Yeah, this is a great character to have here on your list tonight for a certain amount. I remember the Boba Fett hype prior to The Empire Strikes Back, right? So right in between 1977 and 1980, and I remembered. I know we talked recently. I think it was about the holiday special, right? Because they were really pumping the idea that this was going to be Boba Fett was going to be on there too, but also the action figures that we were buying at the time. They were like, you buy so many of these action figures, you get this Boba Fett, and everybody on the block was just, kind of, wanting to get the Boba Fett, so like, especially when that holiday special was going to hit, we were all amongst us talking about, oh man, we're going to go see Boba Fett. And of course it was kind of not very great, as far as the holiday special, that's enough of that. Right. But the character, when he finally got on screen, he was just a perfect, kind of a side villain to Darth Vader at the time, right? Because Darth Vader was arguably the greatest villain, in the history of cinema, right? So to follow that up with, now we have another intimidating villain here, and one that he's not afraid to talk to Darth Vader, right? He's not trembling like, it's Vader's subordinates and thinking that they're going to get force choked or something right away, right? This guy, like when he has a question or he has a concern, he's going to go right to Darth Vader. And not only that, right? When he does that, it strengthens him. It strengthens him as a character because it's freaking Darth Vader, right? That he's doing this to, right? And now at the same time, like when Darth Vader does stuff like, grabbing his blaster, and making sure, he doesn't like disintegrate somebody during, the freezing process and stuff like that, right? Still showing him that he's in control, no disintegrations, things like that. It helped out Vader even. They both helped each other perfectly, right? So Vader was absolutely beefing this character up the way he was, in Vader's face a little bit, right? And it really beefed up Darth Vader even more a little bit. And just those little subtle, those little subtle scenes, right? Of just a simple, knocking down the blaster, or, no disintegrations, right? As you wish, things of that nature. So I think, they played off each other perfectly. And yeah, I wish he would have had a better ending in Return of the Jedi. I think we talked about this before, where
Skee-Ball Fett. I mean, it's one of my worst moments. It was like number 3 in my top 5 worst moments of Star Wars.
Yeah, I remember, folks, and I mentioned this to you before, Mel, how Return of the Jedi was the first film I'd ever gone to where I'd actually heard people clapping and cheering, during scenes and stuff, right? But this is where, when we get the belching scene, that's where they started laughing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just so sad that character that was hyped up for so long and had such a great introduction in the Empire Strikes Back, that he went out with laughter. I will never forget. But that theater was absolutely packed.
Yeah.
And just people in there laughing when the Sarlacc belched.
Yeah, he went out like a total Trump, and then soon afterwards we got Ewoks. That's why that movie is so low on my list. So anyway, yeah, but again, Return of the Jedi, the movie itself, Return of the Jedi aside, yeah, I just love Boba Fett. I think he's just so cool and totally dope, and he's my number 4. So we are in our top 3, people. Top 3, and Dawg. Numero tres.
And my number 3, folks, is who I think is arguably one of the greatest villains of all time in the history of cinema. Right? I put him in there, and I think Nurse Ratched, and the Wicked Witch of the West. And they're just so many great villains through the history of film, and this one was probably one of the most intimidating ones I ever had seen at the time. Right, was with Darth Vader. So I remember he had that first entrance where because right away his introduction's so perfect, because we had all the great music and all the sound from the shuttle, from Princess Leia's shuttle, right, and the big cruiser that's chasing her down, and all the laser fire, right, and then the music and all the sound, and how cool that was. This introduction to this film, right, and now we have this tension built up with the droids and our guys and our rebels getting set up to what's going to lead to their absolute demise. They're going to get absolutely trucked, and as they're getting trucked, we have this absolute awesome presence of Darth Vader walking out for the first time, just looking around. I think he kicks a dude like off to the side, possibly too. So I think that kind of built something up. But by the time he got to, where he was, this is a counselor ship, where's the ambassador? And he's just absolutely choking that dude to death, and the guy dies before he can even get his words out. And then he just throws him up against the wall. We just knew that this dude was absolutely hugely powerful and absolutely intimidating and just absolutely badass, right? So, I mean, and we hadn't even got to the force choke scene yet, right? I mean, there was just so much, great stuff in the first film that made him, one of the greatest villains of all time. Put him up against the Wicked Witch of the West, or, even Nurse Ratched, I think, is another one that's, great. Anthony Hopkins, right? What's his name there? Hannibal the Cannibal,
Lecter.
Right? So that's another one too, right? So, but yeah, then of course, not only that, right? We thought that was so great in the first film, Empire Strikes Back. He's the most intimidating thing in that entire film, right? I mean, he is the absolute lead villain, whereas he's kind of split a little bit. I mean, he's the main villain, of course, in the first film, right? And what was great about this villain also is that you've brought this up on your villain streams before, Milt, where there's qualities that we like about our villain, right? And what I loved about this villain was we had just learned about, Obi-Wan had kind of introduced us to the Force and things of that nature. He had told us about what happened to this Darth Vader, basically. But now we're hearing Darth Vader talk about, don't underestimate the power of the Force and all this stuff, right? And now he shows us what you can do with the Force if you're evil, right? And you can just choke somebody to death, right? With just your fingers, right? And it's just absolutely intimidating, right? And that's what makes him so cool. But as we get into Empire Strikes Back, I mean, as he is, into Hoth, chasing us down, we're just like, oh my God, are our heroes going to get out? By the time he gets to Cloud City and he's torturing our Han Solo at the time, and that's just absolutely awful to go through, right? And then he cuts off our main hero's hand by the end of it, and then we find out he's the father, And then in Return of the Jedi, we're kind of compelled by him a little bit, right? We kind of feel sorry for Darth Vader at times, and I remember the crowd just applauding and cheering as he picked up Emperor Palpatine and threw him down the hole. I'll never forget that. It was so crazy when you look at that arc, that overall arc. And I'm going to shut up after this. Is that when you look at his first entrance, to the time he picks up Palpatine and throws him down the hole, it's just an absolute change, right? It's an absolutely perfect change from from when we were first introduced to him as intimidating force, scary, evil villain guy, right? But by the end of it, people were cheering and clapping. And again, Return of the Jedi in 1983 was the first film I'd ever heard people clapping and cheering. And with that, that's my number 3 tonight.
Yeah, and Dawg, I totally agree with you. I mean, Darth Vader is, pretty much the iconic villain of the 20th century, on par with some of the others that you mentioned here. Yeah, I mean, he was great, especially in the first movie, because, we knew he was a badass, right? Especially in the first scene where, gets, basically, blasts his way on board of the, basically the rebel cruiser, and basically, starts just killing people left and right, and also deflecting blaster bolts, right, from the rebels and stuff like that, the forest. You knew that he was a badass, and yeah, and then the subsequent movies, we actually find out that he's actually, the hero's father, and then the third movie is almost like a pure, redemption of, him back to the light side, from the depths of which he's fallen to. So, yeah, yeah, he's cool, man. I mean, hey, so did you think that we would see Darth Vader again after the first movie when we saw him basically spinning out, into space after he collides with the other TIE fighter, and then we just see him kind of like, spinning off like a pool ball, right, like an 8 ball out into space.
You know what? Not at first.
Yeah, yeah,
But then my dad at the time, yeah, I remembered saying, yeah, Darth Vader was over. He's like, no, I think they're gonna make another movie to this.
yeah,
And because he knew it was like old, because my dad he was all into those old, Flash Gordon and
yeah.
the old serials and stuff like that. So he knew how those things were. He was like, because he just looked at me and I was only like 5 at the time. And he was, hey, look, if this thing makes a whole lot of money, they'll make another one, right? So they left that open that, or you can, if you wanted to, you could just, come up with whatever you think happened to Darth Vader. So
Yeah, I mean, it was really weird too because, like, I think it was one of the first movies I ever watched where, the villain doesn't actually die at the end.
that's true too.
Right, right.
Yeah, that was one of my, that was, that's how that conversation I remember got started, because I was like, I was asking him, did Darth Vader die?
Yeah,
Because I didn't know. I was like, I was 5 years old in '77.
yeah.
But I was asking that question. I was like, did he die? And he's like, no, he went to the, I think my dad said he went to the moon to eat the green cheese or something, right? I think I remember that. To live off green cheese or something. So, but at first that was my question, but another question I had too was like, well, how does, a Jedi fight with, against a blaster or something? I didn't understand that. I mean, it was kind of answered, when Luke was fighting against that remote, but that remote was just those little, chintzy blasters, right? We didn't know exactly what would happen if, say, Han Solo took on Darth Vader. What would happen? And that questions like that were answered in Empire Strikes Back. He just pulled the hand out and just uses the Force and just kind of, puts it into some other realm, I guess, right? So
but and after the first movie, because it was such a big hit, I mean, Darth Vader just became like this instant icon, right? Everybody wanted to be Darth Vader, dress up as Darth Vader in Halloween. We saw Darth Vader at Oakland Raiders games, guys, or LA Raiders game. Do you remember Darth Raider?
I definitely remember Raider fan.
Yeah. I mean, there's always this guy in the stands, we call him Darth Raider because he was a guy basically walking around in Darth Vader carrying a lightsaber, you know, in Raider games. So yeah, so you inspired Darth Vader, you go Darth Vader. So my number 3 is, come on, Jabba the Hutt. Who doesn't like Jabba the Hutt? I mean, he's one of my freaking favorites. I mean, you weak-minded fool. He's using the old Jedi mind trick. Jabba the Hutt would never get fooled by Obi-Wan with any kind of Jedi mind trick. You know, he's just too cool. You know, he's just too awesome. And, you know, what is he? Well, a Hutt. And a Hutt are basically space slugs, right? And they like to engage in, you know, kind of like, you know, devious activities out in the Outer Rims, and you know, he's pretty much the main crime boss out there in the Outer Rims, you know, based in Tatooine, and he deals in illegal, you know, spice trade, you know, he deals in slaves and everything like that, you know, so, you know, he's your typical bad guy. He's almost like a mafioso, if you will, and but you must go about Jabba the Hutt. He has a badass fortress, right? A badass palace with a freaking pet rancor in the lower levels and a trap door. Isn't that cool? And, you know, he also has a luxury yacht, man, right? Just to cruise around the deserts of Tatooine, you know, and, you know, basically throw prisoners off into the Sarlacc. So, what can I say about Jabba? I mean, he's just so awesome. And, you know, he's also, the last thing is also he's impervious to the Force, right? I mean, I don't think even Darth Vader can use the Force against Jabba the Hutt. Honestly, I mean, Jabba the Hutt would just open up his trap door, and Darth Vader would just fall right into the Rancor pit. And then at that point, when Darth Vader's fighting the Rancor, Jabba the Hutt would just kind of like go out into space, right? It took Princess Leia with a chain to kill Jabba the Hutt, not anybody with the Force. Luke Skywalker couldn't do it, right?
I don't know if Vader would have fell for that trap.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe not. But Luke Skywalker sure did. So, yeah, maybe Vader would have fell for the trap door. I mean, whoever expects a trap door in the movies? Everybody falls through a trap door. It's like nobody ever escapes a trap door in the movies. Okay, that's one of those Hollywood tropes out there that nobody escapes from. It's a trap door. It's like such a big surprise. So yeah, man. You know, this bounty hunter is my kind of scum, fearless and inventive, and that's what Jabba the Hutt was. A true crime lord in the sense of the word, and yeah, he's one of my favorite characters. And totally unforgettable, you know. He only appeared in, you know, in three movies. He was actually in episode 4, but that was a deleted scene, right? But you actually saw him in episode 4, and so yeah.
Well, I want to talk about kind of how you brought that up, where they added the scene in, right, and they brought him in. Mm-hmm. But let's say we go back to the original cut where he's not in it, and he's not in Empire Strikes Back. This is one of the greatest non-visual characters of all time. One of the most menacing, threatening characters that we've ever had, you know, for 2 films, really. You know, when we first we hear about him with Greedo, because Greedo at the time, when we have that scene, you know, that scene gets talked about, who shot first, all that stuff, right? But let's get into what's really happening here as Han's trying to leave, and Greedo's like, "Hey, you know, Jabba's through with you, all this stuff, and he's got a bounty on your head, and all this stuff." But he's got him dead to rights at this time, right? You know, at the time we're just kind of thinking, "Oh man, it's not going to be good for Han Solo because of this Jabba guy," right? And now that name has been dropped, you know, and now Han Solo, somebody that we've been introduced to, he's a scoundrel a bit, but you know, we can tell we like him on film, right? And he's mentioning this guy's name. Now we get into Empire Strikes Back, and he's just an intimidating character. You know, Han's got to tell the general, I forgot what the general's name was there, but he tells him, you know, I've got to leave. You know, if I don't pay off Jabba the Hutt, I'm a dead man. You know, so now his name's dropped again, and eventually, the King Daddy of villains mentions his name. Darth Vader mentions Jabba the Hutt's name. You know, he's like, "You can take Captain Solo, Jabba the Hutt, once Skywalker arrives or something like that. Or I think that's kind of how it worked. But Darth Vader mentions Jabba the Hutt's name, and that's pretty impressive, right? I mean, that was just kind of a cool thing when we had never even seen this character at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, and he had, all this tension and all this buildup, and a lot of the bad things that are happening to Han Solo and Princess Leia and stuff like that is due to this Jabba the Hutt guy, right? And now we finally meet him in Return of the Jedi. But I thought, and I remember again, I'm going to go back to where, a lot of folks are clapping and cheering and all that stuff. It was such a great scene at the time. When his barge is blowing up and when he's getting choked out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I just think, he is probably one of the most powerful non-visual characters, especially when you look at the first two films, Mel.
Yeah, because he was just so mysterious. We were always wondering, who is this Jabba the Hutt guy, And it was actually a really good choice that they actually cut that scene in A New Hope, because I mean, it wouldn't have worked if we were introduced to him so early on, you know what I mean? So, because the anticipation was there to finally see what, who Jabba the Hutt or what Jabba the Hutt was. And then when I saw Return of the Jedi, I was expecting like a humanoid, right? Like some sort of, some greasy humanoid. But what did we get? We get this freaking space slug, man. Isn't that freaking awesome? I mean, was that the last thing you expected to see that Jabba the was Jabba the Hutt as a natural space slug alien as opposed to some sort of just big barbaric, humanoid crime lord?
Well, I remember probably like a week before the film and stuff, right? I know I had the comic book, also, but like Burger King and who else was it? Oh, they also would have like the storybooks too, right? But you would see Jabba the Hutt, and then it was just like you said, because I always thought he was going to be some sort of he was going to be human, or he'd be some sort of
And Dawg, in the lower right hand corner of the slide, I actually put in what Jabba the Hutt was going to look like.
I thought he was going to look something like.
I mean, that's what I thought he was going to look like.
What's Walrus Man's buddy?
Oh, the one that I'm wanted in like 8 star systems.
Urza or something.
Urza's. He's a doctor, right? He's actually like an ex plastic surgeon. So he's like,
Urza's something like him or something, right? I thought I was a little guy. That's kind of what I pictured in my head.
Yeah.
But when I first saw him, I'm going, well, he's kind of a space slug. It didn't make any sense to me. So and I'm going, because I was like, that's kind of, at first I thought it was kind of silly, but then when you first see. Luke Skywalker tries to do the Jedi mind trick on Jabba, and he's like, ho.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Jedi, right?
Yeah, the Force doesn't work on freaking Jabba the Hutt.
This dude's like an ancient, he might be some sort of ancient being himself, and he's got some sort of resilience here, and that's why he's a big space slug sitting in that seat.
Well, you know what? Like in the Legends universe, right? I mean, there's actually an area of the galaxy called Hutt space. Okay, even the Empire in its glory days didn't want to go into friggin' Hutt space, okay? Because all sorts of shit happened there, okay? And the Empire left Jabba alone to do his thing, in Tatooine, in the Outer Rims, because the Empire knew that they needed Jabba the Hutt, right, to basically, to do the slave trade and stuff like that, and to basically participate and basically run the illegal spice trades back and forth from the inner core out into the outer rims. So it's it was mutually beneficial for those guys. And if the Empire is willing to work with you and not threaten you, you're one badass, powerful, guy. So that's what Jabba the Hutt was.
I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
How important it was that Darth Vader said this man's name in Empire Strikes Back. When Darth Vader says your name, because it's James Earl Jones saying your name too, right? So it's like, whoa. Not only do the characters that we love they're mentioning them and they're concerned about them, but now the people that we really loathe and despise, the Empire, at the time. Now they're mentioning him too, and you're just going, wow. I mean, he's an intimidating person. We haven't even seen him on film yet.
Yep. Yeah, he's great.
all its chaos.
Yep, that's my number 3, Jabba the Hutt. So now we're top 2,
Top 2, folks.
and we are going into Dawg. What's your number 2?
And folks, this is my number 2, which for the longest time was my number 1. Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, and friend of Captain Solo. And I think maybe the last time we possibly did this list, he might actually have gone down lower. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think he was like number 1 on your list.
He might have been.
Yeah.
But I had to take things into consideration, just like I did when I moved Han Solo up for really being the only torchbearer for us in The Force Awakens. I thought what they did to Luke Skywalker, I can't ignore what happened to him, what Disney did to him. So he's not number 1 on my list, just for the reasons of Disney, right? So this character, I waited 35 years to see actually do something. We waited 33 years, and he just turned around and took his hood off. So that was it, right? And then what they did to him in The Last Jedi was just absolutely awful. But I can't forget the past as well, right? So I can't knock him all the way off the list just for what Disney did to him. But I can't forget, this was like the perfect hero at the time. The perfect hero's journey, if you will, too, right? The small farm boy, or just the new bling, if you will, right? Just kind of getting off into the adventure, getting out into the world.
He's Jon Snow before Jon Snow. That's what he is.
Yeah, he's Jon Snow. So for the Game of Thrones fans, this was the original Jon Snow right here. Yeah. So he wants to be he wants to join the rebellion against the Empire and stuff like that. And now he meets this old wizard, and he wants to be a Jedi like his father and learn of the ways of the Force and be cool and be a Jedi, right? And he ends up, meeting some cool characters along the way, goes through some trials and tribulations, loses some loved ones along the way too. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and yet he takes down the Death Star, and then he's the main focal point for our sequel. I mean, Darth Vader is mentioning him now, right? Darth Vader had never mentioned the Skywalker name prior to, in the first film, right? But there's another important character that Darth Vader mentions, right? Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, or or somebody like that. If that happens, when the bad guy says your name, I think that's an important part of the film. It just always has been to me. And so like when he was saying, I'm sure Skywalker is with them, right? Things of that nature, right? It really, amped the energy, and it was perfect. When he meets Yoda, stuff like that, right? We really watched him grow, right? To where, he's kind of getting his butt kicked in the first film, but then he becomes the hero, of course, right? Now he thinks he's all world or something. He's super pro, right? Now he goes off and he plays Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan just schools him by the end of Empire Strikes Back. But I'm glad you put Jabba on your list here tonight too, because that was another important factor why that character was so important to the Star Wars realm too. Was in Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker's entrance in the Jabba's palace is one of the most impressive things. It was one of my most hype moments. I think throughout one of my favorite moments anyway throughout the entirety of all the films is Luke Skywalker's entrance into that palace, because it was just like we had been waiting 3 years for his redemption. After losing his hand and getting his butt whooped and all is Darth Vader really his father and all this stuff, and now we see him walk into this palace of this intimidating person, Jabba the Hutt, and he's dressed in black, right, with the hood up, and he just looks absolutely badass. And then what were those? I forgot those aren't Ugnaughts. Those are the guys on Cloud City, but those other pig dudes, right? They try to come up to him, and he's just like, he's just force choking these dudes like Darth Vader now, and you're just like, look how much he's grown from wanting to get power converters at Tashi Station to just force choking
And then he falls through a trap door. Dog, that's
And he
what I'm gonna
falls
say.
for the oldest trick in the book.
He fell for the oldest trick in the book. Exactly. He falls through a trap door, but luckily he was able to fly out of it. But still, it's again, nobody escapes a trap door in the movies, and even a badass Jedi can't escape the trap door. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so
I think with the when you look at the first trilogy,
yeah.
the Holy Grail of trilogies, I call it.
Hmm.
Um, this was the perfect hero's journey. Was Luke
Sure,
Skywalker?
sure.
I felt that he was the greatest character. One of my favorite characters of all time. Right? This was my John Lennon kind of growing up. Right? What was Luke Skywalker to me? So.
Yeah, and the thing about Luke Skywalker was that movies aside, where at the end we do see him as a great Jedi or a pretty good Jedi, as well as a fantastic pilot. I mean, he is just so much more powerful when his character actually gets older. Post downfall of the Empire. I mean, arguably he's like the most powerful Jedi that's ever lived. In the Legends universe, by the time 20 years down the road. Luke Skywalker can do anything. I mean, it just shows you the power of the Skywalker genetics, if you will, and those record high, those amazing, midichlorian counts. And yeah, I mean, he's great. I mean, as an antagonist, as a backstory, growing up as a farm boy, humble beginnings, very naive, very innocent, proves to be the hero of the Alliance, destroys the Death Star by trusting the Force, and then, becomes pretty much the man that ultimately helps, basically defeat Star City and basically causes the whole empire to go down in flames. I mean, redeems his father, right? I mean, everything like that. Yeah, it's a very, very good, well done hero story. And, yeah, what can we say about Luke Skywalker? Man, he's not as cheesy as Anakin about
No.
sand. I mean, I think Luke Skywalker likes sand. I don't think Anakin likes sand.
Yeah, I
So,
don't think he minds it so much,
yeah.
but
But man, I mean, why did he have to sell that land speeder? That was such a cool ride.
yeah. And then the X-38 came out,
Yeah,
and then the demand,
yeah,
totally, went down for his X-34. I think it was. I think he had the X-34
yeah,
land speeder.
yeah. And do you remember what he said? He says something that, oh no, that's okay. I'm never
Yeah,
gonna.
since the X-38
I
came out.
yeah. But remember when Ben asked him to sell it? He goes, "That's okay. I'm never gonna be back on this planet again." And guess
Hmm.
what? In terms of Jedi, he's back on the planet. You would have thought that he would have used that land speeder to get to Jabba's palace. I'm just saying, but he probably took Uber. So Um,
And
I
where
mean,
how
and
he did get
honestly, I don't
there.
know how he got into Jabba's palace. Because it doesn't say. I mean, he just appeared one
It's kind
day.
of like
So.
Gandalf, sort of.
Yeah.
Gandalf just appears out of the
Uh-huh.
blue a lot of times. Just never
Hmm.
know, and he just leaves. And
Yep. Yep. So awesome. So number two, Luke Skywalker. My number two, the ultimate Jedi troll, Yoda, man. Who doesn't? I mean, I love Yoda. Okay. I mean, what's not to love about like this diminutive, green-haired, you know, creature, who happens to be a Grandmaster Jedi, right? And who refuses to speak in a traditional subject-verb-object order, right? He speaks in the reverse, which makes him cool, right? Do or do not. There's no try. So, and the thing about Yoda was that he had like probably the best quotes out of any Star Wars character in the movies and probably in the books as well. I mean, we're 900 years old. You're age. Look as good you are not. Much to learn you still have. Awesome stuff like that. I mean, and these things are sticking to people today, right? Even people today are talking like that. When they're trying to get a point across or just for hell, because Yoda, Yoda and Mr. Miyagi came along at the same time. I mean, I still like Mr. Miyagi only because I like the whole martial arts aspect. But Yoda was pretty much, on an even keel with Mr. Miyagi in terms of like these wise old mentors, teachers, right, to our protagonist. And I love those guys, And then, then in Game of Thrones happened 20 years later, and then we see Sergio Farrell basically, doing the same kind of thing as Mr. Miyagi and Yoda. But nevertheless, besides how cool he was, and how cute he was, right, as a puppet. Well, he wasn't a puppet. He was actually played by an actor in the original trilogy. But he was also like a fierce warrior in his younger days, and that was one of the things I looked forward to in the prequels was, okay, we're about 50 years, before the Battle of Yavin, during, when Anakin Skywalker's a kid. Now, I mean, how did Yoda look? How well did he fight? And then we got our answer, right? I mean, he was a little bit more sprightly, right? And the first time that we see him fight in Attack of the Clones against Count Dooku, man, I mean, I was like friggin' amazed that this guy was just doing, flips, backflips, and forward flips, and basically, basically doing something with the Force to basically block, Dooku's Force lightning, right? It was like freaking, it was like freaking Albus Dumbledore, right? In Order of the Phoenix in the Ministry of Magic, there's that kind of stuff going on. So, yeah, I mean, Yoda's awesome. He's cool. I've never met anybody that hated Yoda. And remember, he also slammed Darth Sidious against the wall, which is pretty cool too. So that is my number 2, Yoda. Dog.
We got to give huge credit to Jim Henson here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or Frank Oz, is that right?
Yeah. Frank Oz. It's Frank Oz.
Yeah, Frank Oz. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm sure Jim Henson probably helped him a little bit along the way there, but because to make that, I mean, he was essentially a puppet, and we were very attached to these human characters, as we showed with the pie chart earlier, that there's a hell of a lot of human characters in Star Wars, right? So, to get attached to another alien creature, especially one that's just, all of a sudden now we've got a puppet introduced here. And but to actually make this come to life and work and make it live and breathe and was just absolutely perfect the way this worked, and it kind of leads us. It helps us with things today because I think around this time is when the Dark Crystal came out as well, and they saw that this worked there and it works and it's working now too. I think they're doing a Dark Crystal show too. But real quickly, I thought this was absolutely. It actually kind of fooled me at first because I remembered somebody telling me that my biggest question was how is Luke ever going to become a Jedi Knight now? He's going to have no teacher. Ben Kenobi's gone, and people are like, well, Ben's going to teach him. I'm like, well, Ghost can't do that, really. I mean, I was thinking he probably can just appear for a second or two and, tell him use the Force or something once in a while, but he's not going to be able to just kind of stay there all day. I didn't think they could possibly do that, but my question was answered right away in the beginning where Ben appears and it's like, you're going to go to Dagobah and learn from Yoda. And actually I think I was 8 years old at the time. So I was kind of actually tricked because I thought he was, especially when he was like, Yoda, you seek Yoda. I was actually thinking that this was just his little buddy or something.
Yeah.
Idea that this was, actually.
I mean, he reminded me of. He reminds me of one of those guys that works on like a farm, for like the owner of the farm, sort of like a farmhand, right? So
yeah,
that's what he reminded me of. A farmhand.
I thought he was like Goober and Mayberry or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, and then you're right, Mel, because then now he's Space Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And like if Mr. Miyagi was in outer space, he'd be Yoda.
Exactly.
Right?
And vice versa.
They don't talk exactly the same way, but they do speak in some sort of riddle a lot of times. But it's some simplistic thing that has such a broad meaning, right? Mr. Miyagi does it, Yoda does it. Do or do not. There is no try, right?
Yeah,
So
so Dog. So what was the cooler scene? Yoda lifting the X-wing out of the swamps with the Force, or Mr. Miyagi catching the fly with the chopsticks? For you.
you know what? I'm gonna say that Mr. Miyagi catching the arrow
Yeah.
in the next Karate Kid, which you probably didn't appreciate me bringing that film up,
Nah.
but that was impressive though when he
Okay.
caught the arrow.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, when he did pull the X-wing out, I would at the time when he did it, I was like, oh, cool, he can get off the planet now if he needs to
Yeah.
or something like that. But I was kind of still just like
Mhm.
bummed at the time because I was hoping that Luke would be able to do it by the end of it.
Yeah.
But the whole point was to teach Luke that it doesn't matter what size you are.
Yep.
If you believe, basically enough,
Exactly.
have faith enough actually,
Yep.
in the Force that
Yeah.
it's not going to matter, right? So, but we never got to see Luke pull his X-wing out
Nope.
of Octu. That's
I
what kind
don't.
of bummed me out 35 years later is that Luke never did it.
I don't
And
believe it. That
so
is why you failed. Remember that? I don't believe it. That is why you failed because.
that's why you fail.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
What's,
But
what's in there? Only what you take with you.
exactly. Speaking of what's in there, what was in that stew Yoda was making when Luke first went into his little hut, his little hovel, and basically asked if there was something to eat.
I'm thinking some sort of, because I think we were talking about this a little
Yeah.
bit before, but I think it's probably because it looks like Yoda's got a lot of snakes as
Yeah.
buddies.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of reptiles around him and stuff like that, but and then what snakes they eat, like what Hershey bars, and what else do snakes eat?
In real life or just in fantasy?
Yeah, like
On Dagobah.
cheeseburgers and stuff. So I'd imagine he's probably it's kind of like a slop that you would use for pigs or something, but in this case it would be for snakes.
Okay.
So I'm going to call it the snake slop stew on
All right.
Dagobah. And I think that because I'd imagine that the snakes could feed off of it as well.
It was so hilarious when Yoda basically gave like Luke a bowl of that stuff, and Luke just like looked at it, smelled it, and just put it away. It was like he wasn't having any of that stuff at all, you know.
But to the snakes, they're just in heaven.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yoda's awesome.
you know what? That is a fantastic. Eventually, I wonder if anybody's ever asked George Lucas what
What the hell was in that stew? Yeah, exactly. All right, let's
Does anybody
get
know what Yoda was cooking? Can you smell what the Yoda is cooking?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and let's get into our number ones, guys. We are at our numero unos, and
Snakes, tourists in Australia.
the what?
Snakes, they eat the tourist in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, when I actually went out to the bush in Australia, when I was doing field work, they actually warned me about like king brown snakes over there. Like they're like hyper aggressive, and and they're really poisonous. So stay away from king browns when you're in Australia. So
Snakes.
that's all. That's
have to be
what they warned me
snake.
for. So, yeah. All right. People are talking about Dune. Yeah, I mean that'd be something that I would
I
love
hate
to
snakes,
do one
Doc.
day.
I hate them.
Hey, have you read Dune, Dog?
Long ago, I think. I
Yeah.
remember the old.
Yeah.
Was there an old film with Sting in it?
Sting, yeah, in 1985 there was a Sting film, and
Mhm.
then TNT or was it TBS that it did
And I
as a
watched that one
miniseries.
too.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a great series of books too. Yeah, and I was just talking
I
about
remember
Baron
Fahrenheit
Harkonnen.
451.
Yeah, I mean Baron Harkonnen was like he was no Jabba the Hutt, as I'm gonna say. Jabba the Hutt was much better than Baron Harkonnen. Okay, anyway, enough about Dune. Okay, let's get into our number ones, Dog. Go for it. What's your number one? What else?
Use your aggressive feelings and let the hatred flow through you. Yes, that's number one is Darth Sidious, folks. And the reason why he is my number one is that Disney hasn't destroyed him yet. Disney has not got their mitts into this man and absolutely destroyed him yet. Like I think what they're going to do
Wait 2
in
months.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Yep.
So I think, but overall, this character is one of the greatest villains of all time. Maybe not quite as powerful as Darth Vader as far as film presence. When I was talking about, some of the greatest villains of all time, like when I say like Nurse Ratched or Wicked Witch of the West or things of that nature, right? Or the dude from Cape Fear or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but this character right here, from the first time we met him, pretty much to his demise at the end, he has just been pure evil, maniacal, over the top, beautiful villainry, right? So, I think what is it? Red Letter Media, the Plinkett Review. Right? If you ever had a chance to ever watch the old Plinkett reviews of the prequels, that they summed it up perfectly about this character. He is absolutely evil, and he loves it. Right? So, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a character. Well, Cruella de Vil is pretty evil too, right? I mean, she is pretty bad with those puppies and stuff. I'm trying to think of another character that loves being just as evil as he is, just loves power and just brings that to the screen beautifully as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's our anti Yoda, of course, right? He works in the other side of the riddles as well, and just totally, he's very, completely conniving and persuasive to Anakin, of course, as well. And I'll never forget. I think, that's some of my favorite stuff is when he's in that, and it's symbolic, of course, too, is when he's in that Senate fighting with Yoda, and he has just taken those Senate seats and just tossing them at Yoda. And, Yoda's jumping from this seat to that seat, and he's jumping from here to there. And he's still tossing him down. He's just laughing his ass off because he is evil and he absolutely loves it, folks. And it's my favorite character of all time. And the reason being is that this character has yet to be absolutely tainted by Disney, which I pray to God that he has the greatest entrance in the history of film. Like we talked about that Darth Vader entrance earlier. I want this to be like, I hope anyway, that, his entrance into Rise of Skywalker is like, it's like Bob Barker-esque. Mm-hmm. Come on down, right?
Yeah.
And then he comes out and it's just going to be absolutely amazing. But I'm afraid, especially after seeing the poster, I'm a little concerned after seeing the poster of the film that he's just going to be some ghost or hologram or something cartoony. And they're gonna Disney it up and mess it up. Yeah. And then we'll have to do this list over again after that film, and I might have to knock him down a notch. Yeah. But until then, he's number one, folks.
Yeah. Hey, Dawg. It's funny how you say that he hasn't been tainted by Disney yet. I just have 2 words to say for all you guys who have read Legends: Dark Empire. Guys, got it? Dark Empire. Okay, if you read that, you might be like number 10 on your list. So anyway, I mean, you know what was cool about Darth Sidious? Okay, and this is basically speaking from the point of view of how great of a Sith Lord he was, or a Sith Master he was. He's the only Sith Lord, okay, since the Rule 2, who's actually basically achieved what he set out to do. Okay, everyone else died, before they were able to do what they set out to do. He actually achieved his goal of galactic domination. That's what made him so badass. He's the only Sith Lord that actually achieved what his goals were. Okay, so for that, he's at least numero uno in the pantheon of Sith Lords. Okay, so but I mean, and just the way he was played was so awesome in the movies, right? With that evil laugh and everything else like that, and it was great. I mean, like, in the original trilogy, that was great. I mean, even in the prequels, I thought he was played pretty well too, right? Because he was like, in the Phantom Menace, right? He was like, he seemed to be like this really just kindly old man kind of figure, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, his name's Palpatine. Everybody knew that was his real name, but still, Palpatine before Darth Sidious was sort of like, yeah, he seemed like a cool guy or a very, very nice guy. And then you just saw him getting darker and darker until Revenge of the Sith happened, right? And then, his face changed and then everything changed. And he basically became Darth Sidious at that point. So, I mean, he was always Darth Sidious, but he became the classic Darth Sidious. So, yeah,
I just think that some of
awesome.
my favorite stuff also, from the prequels, right? When I
Mhm.
look and I think of, what's your favorite time of the prequels? I mean, Execute Order 66 just
Yeah.
comes to mind. That's so beautifully done,
Execute Order
that scene.
66.
And, he
Yeah.
was the one that was like, gentlemen, start your engines basically with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, great. Yeah, good stuff. Dog, number one, Darth Sidious. Have to say that does not come as a surprise, dog, whatsoever. So, my number one is guess who it is? It's
Ponda
none
Baba.
other than Ponda Baba, man, aka Walrus Man from Mos Eisley, the Cantina scene. Come on, he's an Aqualish, okay? That's what Walrus Men are, okay? That's their race name. Aqualish, he's a bounty hunter, okay? He was a smuggler for Jabba the Hutt, you know, Nagola Dewagi Wudugger, and then, he doesn't like you. Right? Oh, that's the guy's name. Evazan is the guy's name. The guy that's won it in 8 different star systems. You know?
Yeah, Amazon.
Yeah, I'm a one-it man. That kind of stuff. So, anyway. Yeah, this guy was awesome. And then, he actually appeared in the old 70s Marvel comics, right? So I have this cover on this Star Wars #2 from probably like 1977 or whatever, right? And guess who's in front, right next to Luke Skywalker? That's Walrus Man there, man. That's Ponda Baba. And you know what else is cool about Ponda Baba? He was the first person in the whole string of Star Wars movies that actually got his limb chopped off. And that's like a tradition now in Star Wars movies that there must be one severed limb. Okay, so his was the first severed limb. I mean,
Well,
he's awesome.
we got a little taste of it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't quite the same. But it still was kind of, if you were five, it was still kind of creepy when we lost C-3PO.
Yeah.
And he was getting his put back together. But this was definitely we see the blood, and
Yeah.
and I didn't get to mention that part about Obi-Wan earlier, was how important that scene was. That uh,
Yeah. The
when
cantina
Obi-Wan
scene.
comes
Yeah.
out and shows us what a lightsaber can do,
Yep.
versus blasters and dudes that think they're badass, right? And Obi-Wan is just absolutely badass. And
Yep.
Ponda Baba is just amazing.
Yeah, Pan Baba is friggin' awesome. And but you know what? I'm just kidding. He's not my number one.
What?
Nah, that
Okay.
is not my number one, guys. You know who my number one is? Okay, and this is the Legends version of this character. It's none other than, you got it. I mean, I think Felicia would know who this is. It's freaking Grand Admiral Thrawn, dude. Or Mithral Nuruodo. Okay, Mithral Nuruodo. Okay, that is his name and the proper pronunciation for him. Okay, this guy is awesome. Okay, if you read Heir to the Empire trilogy, okay, it's basically set 5 years after the basically the Battle of Endor, and you know, he's like the main antagonist of the whole series. But anyway, he's great. I mean, okay, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Okay, first of all, was like the only alien. Okay, Grand Admiral in the Imperial Navy. Okay, and this was an empire that did not like non-humans, and of course, Darth Sidious knew the importance of this man and the abilities of this man, that he had to be a Grand Admiral. But this guy was a genius tactician, man. He was a consummate strategist. And basically, he is the guy that pretty much nearly brought down the New Republic, okay, 5 years after the Battle of Endor. I mean, what was cool about this guy? After conquest, he would look at the art, okay, of his enemies, the actual art, and from there he can actually figure out what their culture was and their way of thinking, okay, and then use that against them in battle, okay. I mean, he is really really awesome. And then you know, I mean, one of his big quotes here, okay, is basically from one of the books. Basically, you know, the dominant voice must certainly be wise enough to adopt ideas and methods from his allies and member peoples, okay, but there must be a dominant voice, or otherwise there is only chaos. In this part of the galaxy, that voice is the Empire. So he was basically one of the last vestiges of the old Empire, and he needed basically, it was his duty to basically instill order into the galaxy. Okay, and that's what the Empire basically provided, was basically order and security, and he wanted, you know, the galaxy to go back to those ways, because it was chaotic. New Republic was falling apart internally because it was just corrupt and everything else. So there you guys go, regime changers. But anyway, he also had a pet. He also had pet. He also had pets. Okay, they were like, Y Salamiri, and what they would do is that they would actually block the force abilities of nearby force users. So basically, as long as he had some of those pets, those creatures around him, and there's always pictures of him just basically stroking, a Y Salamiri, like a cat, because any Force user, any Jedi couldn't harm him because these things basically neutralized the Force. So he was smart enough to always have one around him, especially when dealing with a mad clone, George Sabayoth. So anyway, but no, he was also the first person that encountered Outbound Flight. That was a expedition led by George Sabayoth to go explore and colonize new space, and he pretty much destroyed Outbound Flight. Thrawn did, because of security issues. He was actually the first one to basically encounter the Zhan Vong as well, and he actually tried to tell Darth Sidious about the Yuuzhan Vong. Basically they were the invaders of the enemies in New Jedi Order, but he wouldn't listen to him. But he was actually the first one to actually do that, because they realized, him and his people realized the threat that they caused. But no matter what makes this guy so cool, again, was the fact that he was such a genius tactician, okay, and strategist. And yeah, I mean, he was ultimate. If you can imagine Tywin Lannister, but a lot less arrogant, okay, that is Grand Admiral Thrawn, in a nutshell. Because his style of command was great, because people can make errors, okay, like he actually had this one example of a crewman making an error, but it's not a mistake unless you actually fix it. So he didn't believe in like the punitive style command, like Darth Vader, right? You make an error and then you get force choked to death. Grand Admiral Thrawn was not like that at all. And no, and I don't know how he's gonna end up being like in canon, because he appears in canon, but at least the Legends version is that he is freaking awesome. And he freaking found a ghost fleet, man, called a Katana fleet, by the way, that he was gonna go ahead and basically decimate the New Republic fleet, like 200 Imperial dreadnought, 200 dreadnoughts. But before they can basically go into action, one of his servants killed him. That was pretty much it. Ironically, a non-Force user killed Grand Admiral Thrawn. So, spoilers, sorry. But he was great. I love this character. I want to see more of him, and I hope Disney does him right in the books, in future books, and in the TV series.
Yeah, I hope they don't touch him either.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely fantastic choice here. And this was what concerned me going into when I started reading the Timothy Zahn series the first time. I was like, who's going to be the great villain? Nothing's going to replace Darth Vader or Emperor Palpatine. How's that going to be interesting at all? And they did it perfectly with this guy. And you brought up the exact point that I really wanted to bring up was, he had a different style of where, you messed up with Darth Vader.
Yep.
It was force choke. And then Admiral, now you're going to become Admiral Veers or something, right? Or yet, right? So it's just like he's just going through names and just force choke this guy because this guy messed up, and then that's it. But this guy had a totally different style on that. That didn't fly anymore. He had, again, the villain has qualities that we like about him. this is a perfect character that he has a lot of qualities that you like about him. He's intriguing, first off, and then of course he's not going to just kill people just
No, he
because
doesn't.
up right away, right?
Mhm.
Also, he's trying to learn things as well,
Mhm.
and we're exploring things with him,
Mhm.
as well as we do with with Luke and Mara and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
But the other main thing I wanted to say was that he was still intimidating because he had the Salamari as well. So like when you would meet, I think I'm pretty sure it's him that he meets Jonas Sabath, right? The
Mhm.
clone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I remembered that he's got that. So basically, the Salamari,
Mhm.
uh,
Protects him
yeah.
from
So it's
Jorus.
like taking the yellow sun away
Mhm.
from Superman, right, and making it a
Exactly.
red sun.
Yeah.
So it's
No.
like it would basically take away all his powers. He'd just be human,
Yeah.
right?
And
Not necessarily going to kill him, but that's exactly what happened. So it's as you're reading things,
mhm.
because eventually Luke Skywalker, of course, is going to run into a situation where he's going to have creatures like this,
Mhm.
and it's like as a reader that's immersed into the characters, things like that, it's like, ooh, it's that
Yeah.
it's dudes like Tim that put that roadblock in that.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, you're a powerful character now. He's just like you now,
Yep.
right? Now he's gonna have to use his wits and he's gonna have to do something else, right? To
Yeah.
try to defeat this new bad guy here. And that was he was a perfect complement to or a perfect replacement at the time for the great villains that we had
Yeah.
after the trilogy was over and kept the series alive, really.
Yeah.
So
And
I hope that
you know what the
real quickly, I hope that
yeah.
Disney doesn't get their hands on it, but I would love to see the Thrawn series somehow, some way, someday. And Benedict, and I think somebody wants to see Benedict Cumberbatch play him.
I don't know about that, but this is already showed him already. Okay, I think they've already adjusted his origins, which is too bad. No, because I don't think they're gonna mention Outbound Flight one bit. But I mean, I want to make a point here is that we know that he learned from his mistake because during Outbound Flight when he first encountered Jorah Sabaoth, the real Jorah Sabaoth, right? Jorah Sabaoth actually choked him, force choked him, sort of like what Vader did to the captain of one of the destroyers, from outer space, essentially, right? So he learned his lesson real quick, and in terms of I need to find something that can neutralize these freaking Jedi, right?
Right.
And he found it. Trivia question, guys: where is the planet that the Y Salamari comes from? That he got the Y Salamari?
Oh, it's not Corellia, is it?
Nope. It's Wayland.
Mm,
Is Wayland. Yep. That's where they found the Y Salamari. So, or the Salamari. I mean, I'm not sure if the Y is silent or not. I like calling it Y Salamari. So,
yeah, I think I
anyway,
just called him Salamari.
yeah. But yeah, yeah, he's
Sometimes I
great.
call him Salami.
Yeah, and also what's the cool thing about Thrawn is too is that in the books, at least in Heir to the Empire, right? He never referred to himself as he wasn't written in the first person. Okay, he was always written from the point of view of Gideon Pelileon, which is his subordinate. The official captain of the Chimera, of the actual ship that he made his flagship. So, which is really cool because then you always got Captain Pelileon's basically impressions of Thrawn, and they were just like freaking so spot on in terms of what the dude was, what the dude was really made out of, and yeah, love this. Yeah, it wasn't Merkur. Merkur was not where the Y Salamir was. It's Wayland. So good try. Yeah, Merkur was the Voxen and Alec and Solo getting his anyway, becoming one of the Force. I was to say that. So anyway,
Great
cool.
series nonetheless, though.
Yeah.
Especially the first three. I know there's other editions and stuff too, but I
Mhm.
definitely highly recommend if you've never read the
Mhm.
Thrawn series,
Yeah.
check them out.
Mhm. Awesome. S- So anyway,
You did it.
I don't know which line, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's really really good shit, and check out the book, guys, if you haven't read the Thrawn trilogy. I mean, I would recommend that as if you really want to get into Star Wars novels. Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy is the perfect place to start, only because it happens right 5 years after the Battle of Endor. So anyway, that is it for my number one, Dawg. And I think it's time to recap our lists. So shoot, Dawg. What is it?
All right, folks. Yep, my number one was the Dark Lord Darth Sidious. And number two, I have Luke Skywalker. And number three, I had Darth Vader tonight. And number four, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Number five, Princess Leia. And our honorable mention is Han Solo. I almost said ham salad.
I thought you called him Ham from Toy Story. So anyway, my honorable mention is Naga Sadal, because who doesn't like, a half-breed Sith Lord from 5,000 years ago? Number five is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Number four is Boba Fett. Number three is Jabba the Hutt. Number two is Yoda. And numero uno is, got it, Mithra Nurodo, or otherwise known as Grand Admiral Thrawn. And that is it, guys, for our list. Thanks again for coming out. Dawg, any last words about this list, your list, my list? What's coming up for you?
I think that was a pretty strong group of characters out of the 21,647 that we had to choose from. So,
yeah. And yeah. Remember, guys, 21,647 characters, okay, have been introduced in the Star Wars universe out of storylines covering 36,000 years. Okay, that's freaking amazing. Okay, and 80% of those characters happen to be human. Okay, so yeah, well, that's just the way it is for everybody who loves aliens. So what else, Dawg? Anything else going on your channel, or just hanging back?
Just hanging back, kind of on hiatus for a little bit. So might do something soon. I just got to figure out what I'm gonna do.
All right, Dawg's leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and stay tuned on Tuesday. I think Tuesday night we're gonna have a Jeopardy showdown, okay, between our defending champ, none other than Dawg, okay, against a special guest, 1 versus 1, mano a mano, okay. And I'll say it right now, since Dawg's here, the topic is going to be Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire. Okay? And I was forced into doing it. So anyway, besides that, let's see. That is pretty much it. Again, I just want to say thanks a lot to everybody out there. Hope you guys like the new layout. I mean, I think we enjoy the TVs. Would you say, Dawg?
Oh, I definitely always wanted to be on television. This is great.
Yeah, so did I. I feel like a news anchor, but not for CNN or MSNBC.
Like the next Walter Cronkite or something.
Yeah, maybe I can be like on PBS. So anyway.
Good night and good luck, guy.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, cool. So with that, thanks a lot again, everyone, for coming out, and we will see y'all later for our next installment of Top 5 Collaborations with the Westerosi Ninja and Dawg Sidious. Out.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
Ultra Ninja JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca, face, macramé no micado, base, espadas por frases, sintático, repara no que digo, é paradigmático, não tenho paralelo, sou para lado mágico, sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático, técnica secreta do monstro roxo, estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter combos no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos, plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem, nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave mãe, tu sabes bem. somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster, Jinx, cabrão, respeito ao Vasco, cometa Tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai, vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais, a minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho, sento o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso, sou de Nairobi. Ágil como um ninja, rápido como um ninja, tal como um ninja, brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja, forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja, devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas? Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas? Ninjas, ninjas.